I'm gonna be your mom right now and tell you that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's true. They're not lying to you when they say that. And I know that, and especially as a stay-at-home mom, a homeschooling mom, I have 5 kids, I know how important breakfast is. It's not even that it's just the most important meal of the day, but it'll make the hardest part of my day, which is really breakfast to lunchtime, so much easier. So for today's video, I'm gonna share with you guys my week of homemade, from scratch breakfast that I made for my family. I make a lot of things from scratch because the ingredients, because we save a lot of money, and because I find it to be a type of art that I enjoy and get to do every single day. Some of these breakfast recipes you can prepare in advance, and then some are day of. So I hope that you enjoy. I am personally obsessed with sourdough and bagels, and I find that I make sourdough bagels quite often and share it with you guys often. The reason for that is because they are really fun to make, they're filling, and you can do a lot of different varieties of bagels. Because we're in this beautiful summer season, we are overloaded with blueberries. So I had a bunch of fresh blueberries that I wanted to use. These sourdough blueberry bagels are live on my website if you want the full recipe. I had them fermenting overnight, actually in the fridge, just because the summer weather, things are easily over fermenting. So I've been putting a lot of my sourdough in the fridge to cold ferment, and it's nice because you can leave it in there for a couple days and then take it out when you're ready to make it. But I formed the bagels, let them go through some rise cycles, and I'm going to boil them in some brown sugar water and bake them until they are golden brown. You'll be able to see that I'm quite a huge bread person in the morning. There's a couple reasons. The first one is that sourdough bread is phenomenal on the gut and to kind of get your system kicked into gear in the morning. And then also, it is very filling. I have 5 kids, and I find that if I'm not filling them up at breakfast time, they're asking for snacks the rest of the day. So if I can fill them up with a gut-friendly bread, then I'm setting them up for a really good rest of the day. These are delicious. I love that kind of purple color. We topped them with some local cream cheese. My daughter Elizabeth made some homemade strawberry jam and some fruit. We also actually had some hard-boiled eggs to go along with these as well. I'm a huge fan of throwing everything into one pan, one dish, one skillet, and calling it a day. So I have a couple of those recipes today. The first one here is kind of a play on my usual egg skillet, but I'm adding sourdough discard to make this a egg skillet pizza. I'm going to heat up my pan nice and hot, put a lot of butter, I like using salted butter, all over it, and then slowly pouring in my sourdough discard and rolling it around in the pan. I'm gonna lower the heat, let this kind of bubble up. I'm adding some citrusy garlic seasoning on top. I want this to cook quite a bit. I'm gonna crack some local eggs right onto that pan. The heat is now turned off, and I'm gonna add in my toppings. As far as toppings go, be as creative as you like. I really like goat cheese. It's soft, it complements the egg. We have some local pepperoni we had left over from a previous pizza night. And then I just have a few bags of frozen veggies that I chop up and keep in my freezer for when I am doing dishes such as this. So peppers, onions, spinach. I'm going to bake this at 375. It takes about 15 minutes. The smaller the skillet, obviously, the quicker it's going to bake. And then I chop this up. Sometimes I do it into quadrants. Sometimes I'll do it into more smaller pizza slices. But this is ridiculously yummy. You can also add in sun-dried tomatoes and jalapenos. We love to do that as well. But the kids were partaking in this, and they prefer to keep it a little more simple. I serve this with salt and pepper. The kids like ketchup. Kieran likes hot sauce, but it really is a crowd pleaser, and it is so filling. That tanginess from the sourdough discard is awesome too. This is an easy and great way to use up that discard. feeling like some of this discard needed to be used up. And I was also feeling like it'd be fun to make some sort of a babka. This isn't very traditional in my recipe. This is kind of a wild recipe, and I can put it down below. Move forward with caution if you're gonna try out my recipe, and the reason for that is just because it's not very traditional. This was just kind of me randomly putting things together and hoping to end up with a bit of kind of a cakey-esque babka. That would be amazing for French toast. So this is a recipe you can make in advance and then enjoy when you actually need to cook this up. So I have my babka going to town in my bread machine. This is just a really nice egg yolk sweet bread. I'm going to do it with cinnamon and brown sugar and lemon brushed on the inside. I find it just makes it quite a treat for your basic kind of morning of French toast. So I'm adding butter, some egg white, brown sugar. You can also use coconut palm sugar here, some cinnamon, and I'm going to pour that over top of my dough. I also find these warm summer days are making my doughs rise very quickly. So I love that, but I'm also like, oh my goodness, I have to be so speedy with this now because I just find that my dough is working way ahead of my usual schedule. I am filling my dough with that cinnamon brown sugar mixture. I'm just cutting it up, swirling it together and throwing it in my pan. I'm not trying to be fancy. I'm just trying to get it done. I'm gonna bake it. Once it's all baked and cooled, I'll slice into it. It has an amazing cakey egg yolk flavored texture. It's phenomenal. But I'm going to put this in a bag for the next day, which is what you're seeing right now for us to enjoy. I usually start making breakfast around 7 and we eat at about 7:30. I'm putting some eggs into my bowl that's like a plate, and it's like a plate that's like a bowl. I'm gonna add in some local cream and cinnamon and cloves. I'm gonna dip my babka into it and I'm going to let this cook just like normal French toast. You can top this however you like. It is quite a heavy French toast, so my kids just like some fruit on the side, like strawberries. I have a little bit of organic maple syrup because I'm Canadian and I love maple syrup. Wanted to share with you guys something I've been really playing around with, and it is skillet biscuits. So if you're not new here, you know how much I love my freezer biscuit recipe. It's using sourdough. It's perfect for meal planning and looking ahead. It is biscuits that you can freeze and bake from frozen. One of my favorite recipes I've ever come up with, and I wanted to try something a little different because I've been doing that recipe quite a lot recently. So I have been playing around with skillet biscuits. It's basically biscuits. I use sourdough. I cold ferment the dough. I can cold ferment it for up to like 3 or 4 days, which is amazing. And then once I'm ready to bake it, I just put it into a buttered skillet, and it's super simple and delicious and really fun and different. So that's what I'm doing here. I am just getting my dry ingredients together. I am beating up my butter into the dry ingredients, and then I add in my sourdough starter. You can use discard here as well. I'm using active, and I'm adding in whole milk. You can also add in kind of those extras, but my kids do just like a plain biscuit, and then they add in the fun stuff later. My skillet biscuits are just gonna hang out in my fridge for now, and then this is the next day where I thought I wanna do some eggs for the kids. So if you just want to throw a bunch of eggs into a pan and let them cook themselves, you can. We really enjoy sheet pan eggs. I like that I can, again, throw everything onto a pan and then I don't have to worry about them. They just kind of mind themselves while I get some other things done. I'm going to do a bunch of local eggs, some pepper, some cream, and I'm gonna whisk these together. I put it onto a greased pan. Some people do parchment paper lined, but I find greased is just fine. And I'm gonna bake it at 350 for about 15 minutes. It's gonna really start bubbling up and puffing up. But as soon as you let the air out, it kind of deflates, but it's really good. I like the texture. It's almost like a ruffled type of egg. It's really easy to serve. My kids love that it's in squares. And you can also top this with anything. If you wanted to put cheese or veggies or meat on top, that's totally possible. I also know my kids really well, and I know that just eggs will not do it for them. So I decided to pull out some of my sourdough sandwich loaf. This recipe is also on my website. It's my most loved, highly rated recipe on my website. It's just a beautiful sourdough sandwich loaf that you can make easily at home, and I also have a discard version. Moving on to these skillet biscuits. So I will link my freezer biscuit recipe below. The only difference between that recipe and this one is that in this one I use 1 to 1.5 cups of whole milk, where in that one I use much less, because I want this one to be a bit of a runnier consistency and something I can easily scoop. And then you're obviously not gonna follow any of the freezing guidelines. Just put it into your fridge covered and scoop it into a buttered pan. I bake these at 425 until golden brown. It's so simple to do this. It is delicious. You can easily turn these into breakfast sandwiches, or our favorite way is to open them up while they're still warm and drizzle them with honey and cinnamon. Again, skillets are just phenomenal. If I can put everything into one skillet, I'm just saving myself time and dishes, especially if I'm using cast iron. So I just take my spindle and I pull at each biscuit. They come out really simple, and these are so filling. And again, just really great for these little guts and to get us going in the morning. And let me just say, I love carbs. I love bread, especially in the morning. It's just that warm filling that you need. And when it's sourdough, it's just so good for you. Anyway, thank you for being here and for watching this video. I think I showed about 5 different breakfasts. Please know some of them carried over to other days. Some days recipes were just repeated. This is basically how my week went. Thank you for being here, for watching, the support. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.